Peace, family. This is your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. You are listening to the Classroom and the Cell podcast. Of course, y'all know it wouldn't be complete if I didn't have my co-host, the man of the hour, with me. His name is
Mumia Abu Jamal right now.
I know, right? I know that's right, man. Actually, see, when you do that, you make my brain go in different directions, man. I had want to talk about one thing, and I want to talk about something else. Talk to me about your name, and I'm gonna tell you why I'm asking in a minute. But I know a little bit of the story, and we talked about it in the book, Classroom in the Cell, a little bit. How did you go from Wesley Cook to Mumia Abu Jamal?
Well, it took, in some ways, a long and circuitous route. One was school, the other was life. And you talk about a classroom to a cell. Well, I was in a class.
This is a call from Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution, Mahanoy.
This call is subject to recording and monitoring.
Way back in the 60s. And the classroom was at Ben Franklin High School. And part of the Black freedom movement was to demand classes in Black consciousness and Black-related subjects. So we had a teacher from Kenya named Timon Ambima, and he was teaching Swahili. And the brother gave everyone in the class an African name. And I actually had misspelled the name. I had M-U-M-S-I-A, or Mumsia. And he corrected me and said, no, it's Mumia. It's the name of a freedom fighter, like a Mau Mau fighter in Kenya. I was like, oh, okay.
That's heavy.
And the name stuck. And Abu Jamal is the Arabic for father of Jamal. The firstborn of my children is a young man named Jamal. So with that, the name was complete.
Wow. So part of why I asked that is because I think a lot about, and again, we talked about this in our book years ago, but I think I've been thinking about it ever since. That moment in the 60s where two things were happening in the 70s, simultaneously, and that was a political nationalist movement and also a cultural nationalist movement.
Correct.
People really wanted land. People really wanted to build something different than what was already there. People wanted a new nation state. They wanted to nation build. Other people had even more ambitious freedom dreams, as Adom Katachu talks about. They wanted to world make. So maybe we'll create something that's even beyond the nation state, but Black folk got to organize, and we also have to think of ourselves as a collective, as a Black nation, right? That was what some folk were doing.
This is a call from Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution, Mahanoy.
This call is subject to record.
And then there were other people who were more focused on the cultural part of it. They were doing the naming, and they were wearing dashikis, and they were changing their hair, wearing hair natural, changing hairstyles. They were learning Swahili. They were opening up the schools. Folk like Haki Madabuti, and our dear brother who was, along with Sufisha Madabuti, building schools, teaching the languages, doing these sorts of things. And it's not that we have to choose between the two, but it felt like there was often a tension between people who were focused on one side versus people who were focusing on the other. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, and it's unfortunate because I think that, in hindsight, what we find is that both of those things are important. I mean, culture is a powerful social force, but so is politics. And, we fought against each other in sometimes very ugly and very brutal ways. That is the cultural nationalists and the revolutionary nationalists. And the fact of the matter is, when people are fighting for freedom, the hardest thing for them to do is to come up with ideas that join, right, different sides of the struggle. And because everybody ain't going to do everything. Some people are going to do some things, some people, because we're talking essentially about what? A freedom movement. People are free to express themselves in ways that are enriching to them. And it's not one way, Fanon says, it's no divine truth, that people have to find their way in terms of what helps, this revolution be born and happen. And Some people are drawn one way, some people are drawn other ways, but everybody can do something. And we have to have a broader scope to really incorporate social movements. And, what wars do is they break, right? They make people enemies instead of possible comrades. And, that thing became real tragic, especially in California, but really all across the nation.
Talk a little bit about California. There's a lot of people who listen to us that ain't going to know what you mean by California.
What I'm talking about in California is the struggle between the US organization and the Black Panther Party in L.A. I think it was 1970 when John Huggins and apprentice Bunchy Carter were killed by US agents who, knowingly or unknowingly, were really doing the work of the FBI, because the FBI manipulated, right, relationships between those two organizations and really set them at war with each other. And how they did that is a process that scholars now call brown mail. They would send a letter to one brother and another letter to another brother. And the truth is that no one would have written that letter except an FBI agent trying to egg on conflict between black freedom movements. The same could be said of the Black Panther Party in Chicago with Fred Hampton and the Black Keystone Rangers, a big gang in Chicago. Fred was getting letters from the brother who headed the Rangers, and the brother who headed the Rangers was getting letters in the name of Fred. It's a measure of how remarkable Fred Hampton was that he went to the gang headquarters, virtually alone, unarmed, and walked in there and said, "Hey, man, I've been getting some crazy letters from you. What's up?" He said, "Well,
that's gangster. These kids talk about gangster. That's gangster.
That's gangster. That's super gangster, because at that time, the Black Keystone Rangers was the biggest crew in Chicago. They had something like 8,000 members, and all of them were armed, and they could have run the city. And, in fact, they did run parts of the city. And the brother was like, "Well, I got some crazy mail from you." He said, "Man, you know me, right? I got something to say to you. It's me and you. We're going to talk about it. I ain't going to send you no crazy mail." And the brother, even though he was very, very bright and very, very sharp, a hell of an organizer in the gang life, he was not political at that time, right? So he was in the back of his mind, he's like, he's questioning it, but he's not digging that this is bigger than me and you, and, the system want us to fight each other to get rid of both of us.
Right.
Now, they didn't act on it, but, Fred straight up told him, "Yeah, do I want to, take over this joint? Yeah, I want all of y'all to be Panthers." And the FBI knew that. Fred was actually... David Hill told me that when I was out in California. He said Fred was supposed to be the national chairman of the Black Panther Party. Elaine had seen him organize, and she was like, Elaine Brown had seen him organizing, and she was like, "We got to have this brother on the National Central Committee." And the FBI knew it as well, which is why they killed him in his bed in December of 1969.
So when we look at that history and we see they didn't go around killing people for speaking Swahili, they didn't kill people for wearing dashikis or creating Kwanzaa. So is the fact that cultural nationalism is the thing that's actually survived and been most successful a sign of a loss? Does that mean that our struggle was unsuccessful? I mean, am I reading that too pessimistically? I mean, it's just interesting to see what survived and what hasn't survived. And while nationalist movements have been successful in raising consciousness and creating, radical political critique, it's not like we got our own nation, right. Whereas we do have these cultural things. I mean, I see the value in them, but are they like a concession? Are they like the easy way out? Does it mean our struggle was unsuccessful? How do you make sense of that?
Well, I make sense of it that, think about it from the perspective of the state. The state saw both as enemies. The state will use someone to achieve a political goal when that goal is the destruction of one or both that they oppose. And they will use, think about I'm trying to think of the name of the sister who was an actress who they pushed to suicide by putting in articles in the media about her relationship with a brother named Masai, who was the Minister of Education of the National Committee. And this was a white woman who supported the party, gave up money, gave up, contacts and all that. Well, they killed her by pushing her to suicide. Think about Martin Luther King, who got letters to push him to suicide because of alleged affairs, And,
But I guess what I'm asking is, was the state okay with us being cultural nationalists as long as we weren't trying to have bloodshed, land, or revolution?
Because, listen, they call, what's the brother that just died? The comedian who was the supporter of, the brother from Chicago. I can't think of his name now, but he was
I'm not sure.
He gave up his career to really support civil rights.
You have 1 minute left.
Dick Gregory.
Oh, Dick Gregory, yes.
They got a huge file on him, calling him a hate monger, a black nationalist, and all that. And they gave up his information to who? To the mafia, because in one of his speeches he criticized the mafia. Well, they gave up information to the mafia to set him up and get him killed.
So they don't want no consciousness raised. I see.
No, because consciousness leads to other consciousness. It's they wanted to cut all the grass in the forest. You dig? And wherever a head was raised, they tried to knock it off. You dig? So I don't think they thought in terms of cultural or revolutionary. Their thing was black folks. You dig?
Gotcha. I don't know, man. Maybe it's the political mode I'm in or mood I'm in, but. Look, I celebrate Kwanzaa. I appreciate.
Thank you for using Securus. Goodbye.
Love you, man. On the move. I appreciate Kwanzaa. I celebrate it. I believe in, giving our children names that have meaning to us, and not just, meaning in terms of like ancient Africa, not just meaning in terms of, Arabic, Islamic names or Hebrew names if you're Israel, and not just that stuff, but saying as black folk here in America, we have our own tradition, we have our own values, we have our own politics as descendants of slaves, and saying, look, we got our own thing here, and we can create culture around it. I'm down with all of that. But I do wonder if the state, at the end of the day, if the powerful, at the end of the day, would not be completely satisfied 50 years ago, had they known that right now we would have names and hair and clothing and schools, but no land, no new nation, no radical reorganization or dismantling of the economic or political status quo. I just don't know. I'm struggling with it, y'all. Anyway, we'll keep talking about it. I don't want to talk until Moo comes back because he's the brilliant one here. Thank you for listening to the Classroom and the Cell podcast. I'm your brother, Marc Lamont Hill, with Mumia Abu Jamal. Make sure you check out all of our episodes on the Marc Lamont Hill YouTube channel. You can go there and check out not just every conversation we've had so far in the Classroom and the Cell, but you can check out other information, other content, other conversations that we're having on the channel. Also hit the like button whenever you listen so that the algorithms out there in the YouTube universe know that you care about the content. Make sure you subscribe, and if you're so inclined, hit the join button so that you can be a monthly supporter of the channel and of the Classroom in the Cell podcast. If you want to go directly to us and circumvent that YouTube machine, you can go to Cash App and type $MLHTV, MLHTV. And all the money that you donate goes to building the channel, to supporting the channel, to hiring personnel, and to growing that studio. And if you want to send something directly to Mumia or only for Mumia, just leave that in the comment, and I have no problem making sure that every single dollar goes to Mumia for his legal defense and for his daily living. Make sure you do that, and make sure you keep supporting us. Thank you for listening to the Classroom in the Cell. We'll talk soon. On the move.